All right, we are so excited here today because we finally have the chance, after covering all of the ABC hit reality TV series Claim to Fame, the chance to talk to an honest to goodness claim to fame player and star. Here with us, the runner up from Claim to Fame, it's Logan Crosby. Logan, how are you?
I'm good. How are y'all?
This is so fun. We're so
Excellent.
excited to get the chance to talk to you and hear about your whole experience. That Jenny and I, we loved Claim to Fame. We podcast about every single episode, and we have only 9 million questions for you, okay?
Okay, awesome. Let's do it.
Hope you're ready.
Hope you're ready. But just real quick, what's life been like for you since Claim to Fame?
It's been a lot of fun. I finally moved to Nashville, like full time moved to Nashville, graduated college. It was like we shot it. I was in college. I like walked, but I didn't have my degree. Finished summer classes while the show was airing. It was funny because like one episode, I literally get an email at the end of the episode like, you have officially graduated from the University of Georgia. And then like 5 minutes later, the episode ends and there's like a USA Today article and my name's in the headline. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, what the hell is life right now? And so it's been fun. I mean, been working on a lot of music. Now that I've finally moved to Nashville, been writing a lot, been in the studio recording some cool stuff that I hope to have out here pretty soon for everybody to hear. But it's been, I mean, pedal to the metal since the show got off the air.
Nice.
Logan, I have to tell you that you got me listening to country music when I was not doing that before. So the show and your appearance on it got me like paying attention to what's going on in country music and listening to it more. So
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah. Well, could you tell us, Logan, how did you get involved with Claim to Fame? Because we really wondered exactly, like, how did which was such a great cast, but how did they not only find people that were related to famous people, but also like a really amazing cast?
Yeah, so I mean, I know for me, and I think talking to the cast, it was about the same for everybody. I got a phone call one day. I was sitting in public speaking class. And it was from New York City. And I'm like, who's calling me from New York City? So I obviously didn't answer it because it was a scam. Well, my cousin, Jason's half-sister, Cassie, texted me. She's like, hey, these like casting people reached out to me on Instagram DM about this new TV show. I really think you need to call them back. So I call them back and they're like, look, like we found your cousin, Cassie, through Jason's Instagram, and she can't do it. Like, do you want to do it? So I went through the interview process, and did a bunch of Zooms and questionnaires and whatnot. Then I got cast, but talking to everybody, I think that a lot of people got found like through, okay, here's a famous person. Who are they following that has the same last name or look like them? And then reached out. But that's how I got cast. And I think it was kind of the same with everybody. But yeah, I was sitting in class, got a phone call, didn't answer it. The one time I actually went to class when I was in college,
Yeah.
we're going to miss, this.
See, good things happen
yeah,
when you go to class.
I know, not good grades for me, but good stuff comes from it.
Well, I guess we can be thankful that your other cousin couldn't make it happen because it worked out well for you.
It did great for me.
Did speaking of cousins, did Jason Aldean watch the show and give you any feedback?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, he watched it. He was super involved. He was always like, "Okay, so when can I talk about it? Like, when can I?" was like, "You can't yet, you can't yet." And he watched it every week. He texts me. I know that like I think it was episode 4 when we had the fashion show. He was like, "Don't ever dance again in front of people. Don't ever wear that again." And I'm like, okay. So he would text me kind of throughout, and he would watch it every week. And he was a huge fan of the show, which was awesome. And I mean, everybody that I've talked to from the cast, like their relatives watched it. So it was kind of cool. And some of the relatives, like Keke Palmer, followed me on Instagram. And I'm like, never thought that Keke, because I used to watch her on Nickelodeon, and now she's following me. And so I think they all kept up with it.
You've got to be basically family at this point. So
I know. Well, me and Keke Palmer went to a Chili's in Encino, California, and had some drinks. So I think we are. And once you go to Chili's, together,
that's real.
That's the rule. That's the rule. Can I ask you about your hat? I can't stop staring at it. It says, "Howdy, honey." Is that like one of your catchphrases?
This is not one of my catchphrases. I was actually in Texas like a month ago, and I found this in a store, and I'm like, this sounds like something I would say, so I'm going to buy it. And I did. It was probably the best $15 I've ever spent, So
Mhm.
What's on the brim? Are the guns? Okay.
I have no idea. I have no idea. It was laying in the floor of a store in Texas, and I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's buy it.
It's perfect.
You have us trained so well. I'm like, is this a clue? Oh, let's see.
What does it
What does it mean? What is howdy honey?
It's a clue. Everything's a clue.
Can you tell us more about the clue wall? Because this is something that Rob and I spent the entire season wondering about, whether everything on that blue clue wall meant something. Did you guys figure everything out? Like, yeah.
Anytime I see like a Royal Navy blue, like on a painting, I'm like, oh my God, I start like, I'm start having like nightmares after I see it. But no, it was, I'm being honest with you, I don't think we ever fully figured it out. I mean, like there were clues on there. Some were like super like out there. Like I knew like it took us a few days to figure out, okay, this is relevant. I think, we kind of saw it. I was like, oh, this is a cool piece of artwork. I was actually in art class studying art whenever I went out and filmed the show in college. And I'm like, oh, this is art. And then the more we looked at it, I'm like, well, maybe this means something. And so I know that I had like one clue, and it was a tractor, obviously, for Big Green Tractor. And there were just different clues. And I don't ever think we fully figured it out, but we were able to go, okay. And I think, honestly, we had, we've been locked in this house. So we started making things work. And it was just like with Dominique's clue and Al Sharpton, I was like, it's pencils. Pencils have to be sharp. That was such a big reach. But I was just like, yep, it's right, though. And so
I don't even think the clue wall was real. I think they took a bunch of junk and then threw it in there. They'll figure it out. They'll make something work. The pencils are sharp. Sure. That's Al Sharpton.
And it was just like the more that, and that was the thing. I think there were kind of clues on there, like some red herrings or some stuff because we thought, for a long time that, and I know that I said it multiple times during the season, that we thought Lark was related to Martha Stewart because there was like cooking stuff, and there was the same gardening hat that Martha Stewart wears on the cover of all these magazines, and we're like, it's Martha Stewart. And it's just like, looking back, like, well, obviously it's not, but we made it make sense to us. And so, we thought everything was a clue. I mean, it got to the point that we were just like, we're seeing stuff that's been there for, as long as we've been in the house. And we're like, oh, that's a clue now. It wasn't, but we thought it was. So.
Can you talk a little bit about, the first episode has such an exciting kickoff with Maxwell cheating with bringing his phone into the house. We didn't really get to see a ton of the cast reacting to what happened. Could you just tell us, like, what were the other people saying and thinking about this as that went down?
We were all stunned. I mean, truly, like we were. You probably didn't hear us talk about it because we were speechless, because we're like, what do we do? And so he was my roommate. And so it was one of those things that it just never crossed my mind that, there would be somebody that brought a phone in. And I think all of us were just like stunned. And then of course, Pepper, she's like, I would have went home if he didn't have the phone. So she was probably the happiest person in the world that night. But yeah, I mean, I really think that we were all just like, wait, what? I mean, and it was like, I know that Kai, whose real name is Jasmine, alluded to it, whenever they kind of talked to her about it. She's like, are we in trouble? Like, are we in danger? Like, what's going on? You have, Kevin and Frankie obviously getting pulled off the set, and we're like, what's going on? And, we didn't know. It was the first one. We don't know how it's supposed to work. And so then they came back and told us that, and I was like, oh, that's why, that's why they got pulled off. But yeah, we were all absolutely stunned that he had a phone. And I think that we were just, from there, it was just like, oh God, like you can guess wrong on this game. And like your clues, and we had worked so hard, like putting together, our reasoning for why it's Steven Spielberg, and then it wasn't. And luckily we got, a little bit of grace there. So from him bringing his phone.
Mm-hmm.
You had to have a moment where you're like, I could have been Pepper if you guys were all in on it, being like, yeah, it's Steven Spielberg. So it all worked out.
Chuck Norris never crossed anybody's mind. I mean, like that wasn't even a name that and I was, to be honest with you, I was so stunned. Like when his picture came up, I just kind of sat there for like 15 seconds and I'm like, huh?
Mhm.
What? Chuck Norris? And I'm like, oh God, like that's gonna be a weird Thanksgiving dinner whenever he goes back and has to tell Chuck, because Chuck don't have a cell phone, so he may not have watched it, and it's just gonna be like, well, what you gonna say to your granddaddy? Like, hey, I went on this TV show and brought my
Cheated.
phone.
Yeah.
I wonder if he knows.
That's my thing. I want to know if he knows, but that's going to be there may be a table that gets flipped at Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah. All right. So one of the theories we had during the season was that you might have been throwing some challenges, because it seemed like that there was a point when players realized, hey, the only way I can control my own destiny is if I'm the guesser. I want to be in the guess off. And because it seemed like that you really, in the first half of the season, really seemed to be a person who was processing a lot of information, seemed to be getting who a lot of people were. And then all of a sudden, towards the end of the season, you're like, oh, I don't know anything. Well, I can't do anything right. So were you throwing any of these challenges?
I never threw a challenge. I know that there were a lot of people that thought that I threw the 6th degree challenge and then the one immediately after that. But I never did. I'm be honest with you. I feel like an idiot that I didn't know about Justin Timberlake being an NSYNC, but I was born in December of 2000. And so by the time, the only boy bands I remember is like One Direction, Big Time Rush. I mean, so it never like crossed my mind like, oh, wait, Justin Timberlake. And then they started, I know one of my questions, there were some questions about movies and actors in the 90s. And I'm like, look, my parents had just met. I wasn't even around. Like, I have no idea. I apologize. And they asked, about Beyonce. I knew Beyonce really well. But no, I didn't throw any challenges. And I think it's also one of those things that as we got further into the season, my brain starts going all over the place. And so I'll be honest with you, there were a few challenges I probably wasn't thinking straight, just because, you're getting down, you're like, okay, there's 4 people left. Now I finally made it to the final 3. And so, there were some things that I probably should have done a little different, but I didn't throw any challenges. I know that some people did. And like you said, there were times where the best place to be was being in the bottom 2. I mean, because if you think about it, all the power is held kind of by the people in the bottom 2. And if you're the guesser, like, you have ultimate control, because you can pick anybody besides the person that has immunity, and then obviously that got cut off in the middle of the season. That's a powerful spot to be in.
I was curious a little bit about how you decided, because it seems like the cast really bonded. So I'm curious how you made decisions about like what things in your life you're truthful about, what things you have to kind of like hold back or fib about, like, because you have to be constantly thinking about what you're learning from other people, but also what you're giving up to other people. So was that something that you had to be in control of this whole time?
For me, it wasn't. And I say this because a lot of people on the cast didn't know a whole lot about country music, which put me in a great spot. But, for me, I went in and originally I'm like, look, I'm from Tennessee. I'm from Nashville. Obviously I'm not. And then it was like, the further we got in, it was like, well, I'm actually kind of from Georgia. And I taught a lot. I couldn't keep my mouth shut about going to school at Georgia and being a Georgia Bulldog. And so people were like, wait, we thought you were from Tennessee. And I'm like, scratch that. That's not true. But for me, it was one of those things that, like, and my relative isn't like my father or my brother, sister, mother. It was a cousin. So I could kind of be a little bit more, I could kind of say a little bit more than other people. But people like LC, like Kiki's obviously her sister, like, she couldn't say anything, and she stuck with "it's my dad" the entire time. Almost.
Yeah. Okay, I'm glad you brought up LC, because I wanted to talk about your relationship with her, because that you two became obviously very close over the course of the season. The show official Twitter account, like the day after the finale, tweeted out a conversation between you and LC, and I was getting choked up. LC's like, I want my son to grow up like you. At what point did you two start to become so close during the game?
Well, we were really tight from the get-go. I mean, it was kind of like first night, we talked a lot, we bonded. And then, because so Elsie actually lived in Georgia for a little bit. And so we kind of started talking. And at that point, like, it was a known thing that I was from Georgia. And so we bonded over that. And then kind of, I mean, as people started going home, we just kind of got tighter and tighter. And it was just like, I mean, really, when she pulled Dominique's clue, that's kind of when it, like, we were tight before that, but I mean, we were attached at the hip. I mean, and we ran around the house at 2 a.m. trying to figure out what the hell, you know, the clue wall was, or what a painting was. And, you know, we were really tight kind of from there on, but we were good for, I mean, as soon as we got into the house, we hit it off, but we definitely became really close kind of then. And it was kind of one of those things where we tried to get on each other's team during team challenges. Sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't. And anytime I got information, I would go straight to her. And when she got information, she'd go straight to me.
And then,
oh,
go ahead.
I was just saying, did you find that you had strengths in different areas that helped you like work out clues together? And that was like a big part why you guys were such a good team?
Oh yeah. I mean, it was, and I think what people, and even people in the house started to realize this, and some of them too late, unfortunately, it's a very social game. I mean, it's a game, like, you are locked in a house with, you know, 11 other people at the start. And it's like, it's very social. You're with each other literally 24 hours a day. And Elsie was very social, but I'm one of those people, when I go into a room, I want to shake everybody's hand. I want to meet everybody. I want to talk to everybody. Who's your mama? Who's your daddy? How they doing? You know, all that stuff. So I was very social, and she knew, she had a lot more knowledge on like pop culture than I did. And so it was one of those things that she'd start like working out a clue, and I'd go, well, when I was talking to such and such, they said this. And then we started kind of tying things together. So she's somebody that if I gave her a shit ton of information, hope I can cuss on here. Sorry if I can't.
You're good.
I gave her a lot of information. You know, she was able to figure it out. And then I would just go down and have a cocktail with somebody, talk to them. And then I get more information, then give it back to her. And then we kind of put our heads together and figure everything out.
So in the finale, that there is a really important part that happens where, you know, LLC is basically able to control everything. Pepper is willing to go and guess you. And Pepper could have eliminated you. LC decides to basically have Pepper eliminated. It seems as though that was all done so that you could have second place and you could have first place and second place, even though there was, you know, a little bit of a risk factor that if LC was wrong, then you would have won the show. How meaningful was that to you that LC set it up that way?
It was very meaningful, and it was kind of one of those things that as we started to get closer, I think her and I realized like we're gonna be one of the like two of the last three people. And we kind of sat down the night before the finale, and we're like, look, you know, if you win, she's like, if I win, I'll give you second. You know, if you win, give me second. That was kind of like, that was how we had it, excuse me, planned kind of going in towards the back end was, if I win the finale, you know, I'm going to take you out at the very end, you know, and vice versa. So, but I think it was because we worked so hard in the house and we worked together so well. It was just kind of like a huge respect thing that we were both able to say, this is what we're going to do. And we stuck to that, you know, and it was one of those things that when we got there, I'm like, you know, in the back of your head, you're like, okay, is she going to let Pepper take me out? Is she 100% sure on me? Am I 100% on her? Because we were 100% on Pepper at that point, and that's kind of how it worked out. But it was definitely something we had talked about in the house going into the last day of like, this is kind of how it's going to work if we can make it work that way. And luckily we did.
I'm curious, like, about the point that you think Elsie got your identity figured out, because, you know, I felt like you got a little robbed with the final challenge with all of the dares, and I'm wondering how much you feel like your game might have gotten sunk by having to give so much information during that challenge when you were going for dares, and I felt like they were being a little tough on you.
A little
with, like,
ticky tack with the yeah. Come on.
So do you think that Elsie was on to you before that point, or do you feel like that was like a turning point for her figuring it out?
Yeah, I think that going in, she kind of knew, you know, I knew going in, I'm like, I don't think it's her father. Like, I kind of had that going in. And I think with me, she knew like, okay, it's still somebody, because kind of going in and throughout most of the show, I was like, this is my grandfather. So they're thinking, okay, this is somebody that doesn't make music anymore. Maybe they, passed. And so I think that she kind of knew that it was somebody that was still making music and was still touring and was still, relevant in, the country music scene. And so I think she had that figured out. And obviously with, there's only one person I can really think of outside of, there's Jason Aldean, Jason Isbell. That's it. A name like Luke, you have like Luke Bryan, Luke Combs, just different people. So I think when she heard Jason and she knew that they were still making music, I think that's kind of when she was like, okay, it's Jason Aldean. And, she took it and ran. And so that was I think that's the moment that she knew. But I think going in, she kind of, okay, he's still somebody making music. He's still in the scene. And so that kind of helped her narrow it down, I think.
Okay. A big question that Jenny and I had all season long was, when you went to the photo booth, could you hear what the other players were saying when they voted?
No.
Was it like a curtain or like, and then a door? Because we were so confused about the makeup of the photo booth, how far like away it was from everyone out, like during the voting, because it seemed like you had to be so close.
Yeah, it was one of those things that like, it was usually super quiet because every guest off was like super tense. But I mean, you had the curtain, then you obviously had stuff within like the photo booth, kind of like soundproof stuff. And then with, all the I mean, you're in LA, so all the noise, half the time we're out there, we had to stop. I mean, truly, we'd have to stop. Like, hey, everybody be quiet, noise. There was a helicopter, a plane, a police chase. Something was going on where there was noise. And so, they were able to, I guess, isolate our mics really good to pick it up on the TV. But we never heard, oh, well, this is what they're doing. But to be honest with you, truthfully, I don't know but of one guess off where things changed at the last minute. Like, we all knew going out there, like, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're voting. There was a lot, right after a challenge was done, it was like, everybody take a shower, everybody change, and then we all started talking to each other. And so we all kind of knew, what we were going to do. We knew where everybody's head was at. And so that's kind of where we were at on that side of stuff.
And Logan, I feel like you left out, at what point did people start drinking on the nights of the vote off, the guess off?
Depends on the guess off. There were some that we were, this is what's going to happen. Everybody's good. Let's have a glass of wine. Then there were some were like, hey, this is one of those nights where we're all going to shoot tequila because, we're kind of nervous. So it really just depended on the guess off. But, we had a, I guess, open bar, but
nice.
Some nights where every single one was different.
I was always wondering what was in like Pepper's wine tumbler that she was always gripping, like so stressed out during these guess offs. And I was like, what are they drinking?
If it was Pepper, if it was Pepper, it was probably a tequila Coke.
Not juice like Dean Martin.
No, it was not juice. No, it was not. It was not juice. I know that Dean Martin's vibe was to pretend that he was a little tipsy, but for Pepper and all
not
of
his granddaughter.
There was no pretend. There was no pretend.
Okay, so Logan, we saw a few different times, especially I think when you were trying to crack who is Pepper related to, who's the person from the RHAP Pack. We saw you like flipping through books in the room where you do the confessionals, and we were wondering, like, did they say, hey, everybody that's on the show, is it like there's something about them in these books? Like, did you have some sort of a reference to go off of?
No, so we were just told when we went in the house, that first episode, there's a line, and I went back and watched it a couple days ago, like rewatched everything, that Kevin was like, everything can be a clue. And we took that very literal. Now, everything was not a clue, but when we would go in there, we'd go, well, let's just look and see. And so we flipped through books and like, but there was never a book that had like, this book has a picture of Dean Martin in it and info on Dean Martin. This book has something on Zendaya. This book has something on it was just kind of, you'd flip through a book, maybe you'd find something, usually you didn't. I know this is going to sound crazy. There was a point in time that Elsie and I thought that Lark was somebody different because like she's a supermodel. Well, there were a lot of books that were written in German, and so we're like, who's a German supermodel? And it was just like looking back, it's like that wasn't even close. But because it was in the room, we thought it was, and it was funny because I'd go in there and like there was one, like there was a clue. It was like a little elephant, and it was sitting like in one of the shelves, and I'm like, oh God, that's my clue. And I like remember talking about it. It was like because Jason's wife was a cheerleader at Alabama, and obviously they're the Crimson Tide, and an elephant is their mascot. And it was so far removed from reality, but you go in there and that's what you think it is. Mm-hmm. And so it's one of those things that, there were clues all over the place, but everything wasn't necessarily a clue. But, when you're locked in the house for that long, you kind of your mind starts going places, and so you think everything's a clue.
So were the books just like random props? Like, did they have anything to do with anything? Like they were just in there for decoration?
I think they were just I think art department, went in and put the books in, and we were like, okay, this book has something to do with it. And it had absolutely nothing to do with anything.
They were probably laughing at you behind the scenes.
I'm sure the producers had a great time watching us just trying to figure stuff. I mean, I remember there was like one day that we went, they brought us more groceries, and we started looking through the groceries, and Elsie and I were like, do you think that's a clue? And it's like a bag of Lay's chips. And it's like, no, it's not. But at that point, we're like, oh,
but those are very important for Big Brother. That's a different show. Maybe somebody's related to Taylor. So, okay, I know how these reality TV casts go. Okay, after the show, people are tight. People get not so tight. Okay, who all do you hang out with? And then are there any people that are not so tight with the rest of the cast?
No, we're all super tight. I mean, I probably talk to Brittany, Lark, Pepper, and LC the most, but it's just like literally every week, like we have a group chat, we text them there. Like if I have something, if I have a song coming out, they're like, hey, we love the song, can't wait to hear it. If somebody, does something, we're like, hey, or if it's somebody's birthday or anniversary, like we're always texting, always talking to each other. We're all super tight. Michael and I have some really cool music ideas that we've got that we're going to try to, I'm going to go out to California and do some music. So, I mean, but we're all tight. I mean, we talk to each other all the time. I don't know of anybody on the cast that dislikes anybody.
I mean, you're going to Chili's with Keke Palmer, so clearly you're all close.
You're going to Chili's with Keke Palmer. I mean, hello, everybody's tight. So,
do you have her number in your phone like Amara did?
I don't know. I don't think I have Kiki's number. I know Keke and I follow each other on Instagram. Kai Gerber and I follow each other on Instagram.
Well, Logan, did you see I saw a poster for Sister Act 3 with Keke Palmer and Whoopi Goldberg. We're like, oh my God, this is the crossover event we've been waiting for.
Right. And it was funny, like when the funniest thing was like when somebody would get revealed or like we'd find out, and we'd be like, oh my God, like I know that like Frankie said something like when Brittany got eliminated, it was like, you're related to Brett Favre. He's like, I've got a football signed by your dad in my bedroom still. And it's just like figuring stuff out like that. And then like when Jason would watch it, he was like, yeah, I did such and such with them one time and I met them here. And it was just like funny watching it. But, when we were in the house, we had no idea. But then of course that name pops up and you're like, oh, like he's done press with them or they've done this with each other. But we're all tight, and it was funny, like watching the relatives, become fans of us.
Yeah. Can you tell us what it was like to work with the Jonas Brothers? Any fun stories from the set with Kevin and Frankie?
I will say that Kevin and Frankie are some of the funniest people I've ever been around. I know that like when I did the fashion show, Kevin wore a suit one time that was very similar to the jacket that I was wearing. And so he like went
He's changing.
He like went and pulled the picture up and he was like asking us on set. He's like, who do y'all think looks better? And he just like took his phone around to everybody. And I'm like, hey, quit putting me on the spot. I didn't know that I was wearing this. I didn't have a stylist that told me that I had to get in this. I just found this in this room and I thought it looked cool. But they were fun. I mean, we had some time. I know Kevin one time was like, does he have a guitar on him? And, he wanted to sit there and play and nobody knew. And I'm like, yes, I have a guitar. I always have a guitar. Come on now. That's a staple of if you're a country musician, you always have to have a guitar with you. But they were a lot of fun. funny. It was funny when Frankie and I realized that we were both like the same age, because I think his 22nd birthday was like 2 weeks ago.
A couple days ago, or a week ago.
A couple days ago, and I turned 22 in December, so like we're 3 months apart, and he thought that I was older, and I thought he was older, and they were just a lot of fun to be around, and great energy, funny, made everybody feel comfortable all the time. So they're class acts. I absolutely love them.
It really did seem like they were like part of the family. So are they in the group chat as well, or?
We have a group chat with Frankie called "We Are the Relatives." And
Oh,
jokes in there, but no, they were just so much fun. I mean, and it was funny too, because like they actually played the game. Like, I don't know if they ever got the choice of like, this is who everybody's related to, but like they played the game, and they went along and they tried to interpret clues, and they would talk to each other. So it was fun watching them like get to play along too.
yeah, that was interesting, because we went through the show and it took us a while to realize that they didn't actually know, because I think at one point they said something about clearly they were in on knowing that Simone Biles was Louise's sister, but I think that was because that was house knowledge to everyone.
The layup.
So yeah.
The layup. I know. It's like, when that happened, I had so many people that have like asked me, they're like, why did y'all not send her home earlier? I'm like, look, you weren't in the house. They're like, well, we knew from day one. I'm like, well, hell, we all did. As soon as she walked in the house, we're like, okay, we know who this is. But she was awesome. We loved our little Louise. So I mean, she was a fireball. She'd get in there and compete.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, it's a social game. So obviously, like you're doing things to keep people around that are helping you and that you like in the game as well. So I figured that had to have been part of why Louise was sticking around with you guys.
Oh yeah.
Logan, was it an advantage or a disadvantage for you to be the only guy left in the house so early on in the game?
Oh, that's a good question. I hadn't thought about that. I don't know. I think that it was kind of at that point, and I mean, I think this is true throughout the entire season. Like, once people were figured out, it was just kind of like if you were next in line to go, like you were ready to go. So if it was episode 5 or 6 and they knew me, I don't think they would have cared. Like, he's the only guy left in the house. I mean, and so I think it's one of those things that it probably helped. Maybe, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, but I think if I would have got figured out earlier and they would have been 100%, they definitely would have took a shot.
How many days did it take to film Claim to Fame?
Let's see. 20.
Oh my God, that many? Because we were assuming that it was like every episode was one day.
No, I think it was over 3 weeks. I mean, so it was.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it was pretty quick, but I mean, yeah, it was a lot to fit in, but I mean, it got done. But yeah, it was like 23-ish days, 24, somewhere in there. I don't know the exact number, but it was over 3 weeks. I know I missed 3 weeks of school. Thank God.
Were you surprised when the eliminated contestants came back during that finale, and to find out that they had been, sequestered that whole time as well? And did you get to socialize much with them? Because we didn't get to see a lot of what was happening. We saw a lot of them socializing with each other, but I was curious about how that, like, what a surprise that was for you.
Oh yeah, I mean, we had no idea. And I know that Elsie, there was a line that Elsie was like, here we are, the people that we worked so hard to get out of the house, and they're back. And it was just like, oh gee, for the love of God, and at that point, people didn't really love me and LC, because I think once they all got back, to the house, they started talking amongst each other and was like, well, this happened and he said this and then she did this and they did this. And I think they kind of saw that, okay, them two were tight and working together, because we really didn't ever go out publicly and be like, hey, we're a team. And so it was definitely a surprise. But, when it came down to it, we didn't get to socialize with them a ton, like between that last challenge and the guest off, just because we were getting ready. We're getting doing our hair and makeup, they were getting in their dresses. I was getting in my tux and everything. And so not a whole lot of socialization there. But then once camera shut off, we all had a little party. So we had a little bit of a good time.
Okay, now Logan, I know they're casting for season 2 of Claim to Fame. Have you referred anybody yet to the producers to go play in season 2 of Claim to Fame?
I haven't referred anyone directly to the producers, but there's a couple of people that I'm friends with that I'm like, hey, like, think this would be good for you to do, or like, you need to go do this. And, you know, some people are very open to it and they're like, oh, yeah, get us more information. And some like, no, absolutely not. They're like, we don't want to have to go on national TV and take a shot of hot sauce. I'm like, look, that's not gonna happen yet. I'm sure they're going to change it. I was like, and two, it wasn't terrible, you know, and it was like one of those things too, going back to how good, you know, Kevin and Frankie are just as people. You know, Kevin was like, hey, we're not going any further. He needs another glass of milk. And I'm like, look, thank you, but if I drink another glass of milk, I'm probably going to throw up again, and that's just not going to end well for anybody.
Right.
But yeah, I've got some friends that are in mind. I'm like, hey, like, this is right up your alley, and we'll see. I'm like a kid in a damn candy store. You know, I'm excited for next season. I'm like, and I'm not looking at my phone. I'm not Googling, Twittering, nothing. I'm gonna have my yellow legal pad and a pen.
Back to work.
I may buy, you know, an erase board and write down clues or a chalkboard. I don't know yet. We haven't got there, but I'm excited to see like who they're going to cast, who's going to be, you know, because I feel like we had a really good cast and a very, amazing, you know, funny cast, and everybody had their own thing they were good at, and, you know, things that we were bad at, and good knowledge, bad knowledge. So I can't wait to see like who they're going to pick up for a season 2.
And to that point, like the cast was incredible. It was such a good chemistry between all of you. Like they should consider, you know, bringing some of you back even just to host a challenge or something like that. Like if they asked you, would you hop in and let yourself get potentially spoiled to be a part of it?
Oh, heck yes. If they called me and said, hey, we just want you to hell, I'd go be a PA for 23. You know, I don't care. I'll go back for whatever, you know, but I'd love, that's something that Elsie and I've talked about. We're like, hey, like, let's see if we can go back and be like the host, or like not the host, like the judge of a talent show, or like something if they do it. So I would definitely go back. I mean, easily, like I said, I'm playing along the entire season, next season. So I'm excited for it, and just excited kind of to like watch it without me being out there and like, oh God, what did I say that they're going to put in? Did I have a little bit too much to drink, you know, and say something probably shouldn't have? So it'll be fun to watch, you know, with no pressure of like, okay, I'm actually a contestant.
Logan, were there any fun moments that happened at the house that were favorites of yours that we didn't get to see on the TV show?
Yeah, I posted behind the scenes of all of us sitting by the pool one day, and I was.
Hold on, you had a phone like Maxwell?
I did not have a phone. No, one of the producers was filming us. We were all sitting by the pool. I was strumming the guitar. We were all singing. You know, there were a lot of fun moments. I could probably sit here for 5 hours and just tell you, we'd have like dinner parties. We get all dressed up. And be like a theme. I mean, so it was just a lot of fun stuff that we did that, I mean, obviously you're taking, I mean, thousands and thousands of minutes of film and putting it down into, you know, 430 minutes. So obviously you never were able to fully see what all we did, but we had a lot of fun moments. Like I said, we were all tight kind of from day one. And that was something that I was talking to some of the producers, you know, as we were going into the house, and they're like, look, y'all are all going to be friends after this. Y'all are all going to go through the same thing. Like, you're all going to be locked in this house. And then watching that actually happen and our friendships develop and grow. And then the fact that we're all still friends now is it's one of the coolest things, but it's super fulfilling because like we all did go through the same thing together. But we had a lot of fun moments. I mean, we played a bunch of card games. We had coloring books. I mean, you got a bunch of 20 and 30-year-olds coloring, drinking tequila, and you're like, what in the hell? You know, but it worked. So we had a time.
Did you keep any of the things you colored?
I personally didn't. I don't color inside the lines. So, you know, I think they threw mine away. But
it's the way to live.
We have some great, you know, colorers in the cast. If you wanted to know that, that's a little fun fact. And some people that know how to shoot tequila too. So
I bet. Well,
go
Logan,
hand in hand.
We really appreciate you making time to talk with us about Claim to Fame. We love the show so much. Everybody that we talk to and we podcast about all the competition reality shows, and we told everybody all summer long, you got to watch Claim to Fame. It's so much fun. So we really appreciate the opportunity to get to speak with you here tonight. I know you have a lot of exciting things going on in your career. Where can people check out what you're doing?
All social media. I'm Real Logan Crosby is my handle. And then I've actually got a song coming out October 7th. So at the back end of this week when we're filming, And so I'm on Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere you can stream music, I'm on there, Logan Crosby. So a lot of cool stuff. I love TikTok. So if anybody wants to go find my TikTok, let's roll.
What do you do on TikTok?
I sing, and then I just do stupid stuff. Like I had a TikTok the other day.
Eat peppers?
I went to no, I go to Chili's though, and
yes.
TikTok.
That is a pepper. That is a pepper. Chili's.
And I moved in, and yesterday I hear a knock at my door, and I go, and Chili's has sent me, a housewarming gift. And so, I thank you, Chili's, for that.
Well, what are you, sponsored by Chili's? What is going on?
What happened?
Not yet. Maybe I was like, hey, let me write a jingle for Chili's. That would be something else. But no, I mean, that was funny, getting something from Chili's. But I get on TikTok and I either sing or I do something stupid. One of the two.
Okay. Wow. That's sponsored by Chili's. I mean, you didn't win, but look at you now, Logan.
They should pay you.
Sent me a Chili's blanket. I'm like, well, I will not be cold this winter with my Chili's blanket.
Okay. All right. Logan, thank you so much for making some time to talk to us. We really appreciate it. All the best to you outside of the show. And thanks again. Okay.
Thank y'all so much.
All right. Take care.